Hi, this is my fourth devlog for my final major project, Golden Worship. This week has started Monday and ended Friday of the same week. To start, we have my A sprite, which I created a new crop called the Spiteberry. It's a very linear growth where it just goes upwards. I sketched out the first and the last frame, and that's how I filled in between frames. It's the workflow that I'm using for most of my crops. Then we have the berries, which I'm not entirely happy with, and then we have the golden version. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to stick with these berries, but I tried to get them to replicate this texture here. Then we have the seed sprites, which is one for each of the different things. So this here would be the jawvine, this would be the wild shoot, this would be the berries, this would be the miasma weed, and this would be the spike berries. I disliked how it looked against the background, so I added a box against it. So in Unreal Engine, it looks a lot better. And then finally, we have the icon for Demeter, which I finished by adding some shading and some light. I also added a general outline for it. This here shows the portrait in the dialog box. Next, we have the Unreal Engine project. I started by uploading all of my assets, and then I moved straight on to setting up the farming systems to work properly. I set up a seed navigator. This here is a scroll box, which I learned how to use. It's quite simple, where it creates one for the length of the buttons. So it will create all of the buttons needed for the seed selections, and then the button is a separate thing, which is here, which has the box and the costs below it. It will just set it to whatever image is passed through, and then we have this here, which will detect when it's clicked, and depending on the type of button that it is, it will set the seed to the current seed selected to the button's ID, which is inputted there. And then we have the text, which is set towards the start, and it will just be the cost of the crop. This leads to this effect here, which will show the current cost of any crop. Next, we have a minor issue that I found, which I fixed by adding this hitbox. So what would happen without it is whenever it was run, you can see there they would all like bunch up together, and I hated how this looked, so I added an invisible cube around it. Next, we have the crop, which I reworked quite a bit. I added a new script down here for when you harvesting, sorry. So it will check if the stage is full, and if so, it will add the money that it will get from the get value function. This will just get the estimated value with all of the calculations, and then it will set that to that. I then, the update texture, I changed so when you're hovering it, it will change the color a tiny bit, so it will tint yellow. And then I had this run twice, because I changed the assets to have zeros for the ones that are both normal and golden, which will mainly minimize the amount of time that I have to spend importing all of the different sprites. Next, we have the gods, which I set up Demeter. Demeter's statue is a button with a progress bar and a donate sign on top of it. When the button is clicked, it will test if the donate's unlocked, and if it's not, it will create a dialog and it will show the box below it. So if I preview this, it will create the dialog and it will create this box here. I save this in the game mode, so when you go back and forth, it will save, and you can donate money, of course. And as you can see, I have 1,000 start for debugging. Next, we're going back to the crop because I realized that I didn't talk about mutations. There is a very small chance, and by very small I mean a 1 in 50, that's meant to be 50, chance that it will mutate to the next crop. I have this as 5 for playtesting. So in the evolves from here, we have every single crop's ID and what crops it evolves from, and a 0 if it doesn't. Then it will get the ID, and if it's equal to the crops, if it's equal to what it evolves from and the current ID, it will set it to be the next one if you get the 1 in 5. Next, we have the dialogue, which I added to a small bit. The main thing was just writing the dialogue. So I got the icons imported, and then I wrote the text saying how you can donate to her. Then the way that mutations work is when you plant a crop, of course there's a 1 in 5 chance, and now I can plant the bamboo. If I try and grab this one, it won't let me plant it until the bamboo evolves into it naturally. And then of course I can harvest it and get the money back as it adds to the total. And then after getting that, I can place that. But by this standard, you can never get miasmoid and spikeberry because it will be given to you by Demeter's unlock tree. Yeah, I believe that is everything that I've done this week. Oh, actually, I slightly reworked the planter tile to accept a lot more values, so it can have everything saved and stored into the crop instead of it having to constantly cast to the clicker game mode for every single crop. And I believe that is everything. Yeah. So that there was my final major project, devlog number 4.